Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Now we're talking. About I would say, the Cuban Missile Crisis Part 2. They were talking about this, and I said many times that eventually the Russians will get to this point. What am I talking about? The Russians are going to react to the Americans coming close to their shores or to NATO. How? Doing the same thing, which is deploying its military around the United States of America, which the United States of America will not like. So, what's going on here? Russian warships headed to the Caribbean for drills as tensions rise over Ukraine, US official says. So the Russians bring warships to the Caribbean. That's, the Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, the Grenadines, and all those guys. All right? So that's where the Russians will conduct some drills by Florida. In the art of war, there's two main, how should I put it, tactics. And that is a surprise attack or always a counter attack, a counter. If you choose to attack, you need to make sure that that's going to be a surprise attack in order to overwhelm your enemy. Or, in general, you counter. This is what the Russians have been doing since this garbage in Ukraine. And that did not start in the 24th of February 2022. It started much earlier. I would claim that it started with the first consequence of the first expansion of NATO towards Russia as being the main enemy. Now remember, in fighting, what do? You do drills, all right, among others. So someone punches you, you do a counter. When you fight, the first instinct is, if someone comes in front of you, close your eyes and start punching. That's the first level. The second level is the one when he's punching, you just block. And that's it. Block, and now. The third one is now block and hit, block and hit. The other one is you block and then you punch. The other one is just moving around. So if someone punches you, you just go to the left, to the right, bob and weave and all that. So you avoid until the other guy gets tired or you get a right angle and then you strike. And the highest, besides the fact that you should not get in fights, the highest level is the one with counters, which is if someone punches, you don't close your eyes, you don't block, you don't bob and weave, you counter in the same time. So he's like bang. So he's missing and bang, you destroy him. That's how a real fight, that's how you would know a fighter is a good fighter. When the guy attacks, bang, counters. Attacks, bangs, counter. Bang, bang. That's how you do it. The Russians have been doing this. When the Americans sent over there, the howitzers, the Russians says, okay, we will react. Okay, when they sent the armored vehicles, the Russians says, we will react. When these guys went with the tanks, we will react. When you guys, said, oh, we're going to send the F-16s, we will react. If we're going to hit inside Russia with our weapons, the Ukrainians will do. The Russians said, we will react. This is a reaction. 2 years and a half late, I would say, but better late than never in this case. So what's going on? The Russian fleet will move south of Florida. How interesting. What do you think the Americans will say? Will they say the same thing as they tell the Chinese in South China Sea or the Sea of Japan or wherever they conduct drills by the Korean Peninsula, by China? No, they will not say. I guarantee you the Americans will be pissed. So let me read you this article. Comes from the Associated Press. Here. Russian warships, there you go. Russian warships headed to Caribbean. Paparap, papakap. This is it. All right. So it's going to Caribbean for drills as tensions rise over Ukraine. Why the tensions rose? Why? Because someone escalated little by little by little. And the Russians reacted. Pang, pang, pang. All right, and pang. Not only pang. So there we have. Let me just plug this shit. Washington, the US has been tracking Russian warships and aircraft that are expected to arrive in the Caribbean for a military exercise in the coming weeks. In a Russian show of force as tensions rise over Western military support for Ukraine, US officials said Wednesday. The Russians kept warning. Stop, stop, it's going to be an escalation, it's going to be an escalation. That's one of them. I got another article, another topic that I will cover in the next video that I will make. Again, the Russians providing another bow and bang right there. You'll see that's even worse than this one. But that means an order has been given. The ships also are expected possibly to make port calls in Venezuela and Cuba as Russia establishes a Western Hemisphere military presence that the senior Biden administration officials said was notable but not concerning. Wait, not concerning. The exercise, which they want to make sure that the baboons are not all scared now. Why? Because these guys thought that they can, provoke and they escalate with impunity over there in Ukraine, and the Russians will not do what they're doing. And now, what are they going to tell the guys? See, the Russians are coming here. We told you. Yeah, but who initiated that? The Russian unprovoked attack on Ukraine. That's how the story goes. All right. It says here, the exercise, which will be monitored by the US military, will involve a handful of Russian ships and support vessels, the two officials says. Okay, and how many submarines? It's not the first time Russia has sent, now they try to calm the baboons. It's not the first time Russia has sent its ships to the Caribbean. No, but don't you think it's a strange timing now? This exercise, however, is taking place as Russian President Vladimir Putin has suggested that Moscow could take, quote-unquote, asymmetrical steps elsewhere in the world in response to President Joe Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to use US-provided weapons to strike inside Russia to protect Kharkiv. Only Kharkiv. And from Kharkiv you go to, you go to Moscow, and then you go to St. Petersburg, and you go to the entire Russian Federation. All right, so what do you think will happen? Well, is that good? A good thing? No, I think it's going to be like the Cuban Missile Crisis Part 2. The Russians this time will have, again, will say, as they said the first time, Khrushchev to JFK, take your garbage from Europe, and then we're going to take our garbage from you, from next to you. Now, I know the people in the West are told half of the Cuban Missile Crisis story, which starts from somewhere. So this is the whole story. This is their story. They're told this. The beginning is missing and the end is missing. Why? Because that would show that they were smacked. And who wants to be smacked? Nobody. Well, this is the way it was. Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, JFK, the American leader, right? And the Americans deployed Jupiter nuclear warheads in Turkey and Italy. Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, told JFK, take your garbage out. And then JFK said, or what? Okay, we're going to think something. And then that's when the story starts in America. So the beginning is missing. And then Khrushchev, as an evil guy, sent tubes and started launching pads in Cuba. No nuclear warheads were in Cuba deployed. So when you hear these guys saying, and Russia, not Soviet Union, Russia deployed nuclear weapons in Cuba, there was no nuclear weapons in Cuba. And they were shipped on top of the vessels. Why? So the Americans can see it with their spy planes, which they did. But we saw evil Khrushchev, and we told him, if you stop this right now, we're going to make a blockade here on you, then what are you going to do? Stop. And Khrushchev said, no, I will stop when you take your Jupiters out of Turkey, your nuclear warheads. They have nuclear warheads. And JFK said, no, okay, screw you. So it continued, the blockade, and nothing happened. Eventually JFK said, okay. So now this is the part that you're not told in America, usually in school. And JFK said, yeah, okay, we're going to take them in 6 months. But you stop that. Yes. So if you go at the beginning of the story, Khrushchev won because he made the Americans take their Jupiters in 6 months from Turkey. I can't remember if exactly they took it from Italy as well, but from Turkey it was good enough. So who won? All right, I think we all won because these guys didn't get added. So the same here. Putin will have a big presence in the Caribbean and in the hemisphere, and it's also Nicaragua. They say Cuba and Venezuela. I'm waiting for Nicaragua to jump the trio, the Trinity. Yeah, okay, like in the Christian Orthodox, not in the Catholics. Christian Orthodox, right? Not that I'm one of them, but they grabbed me when I couldn't say no, and they put me and said, you're a Christian Orthodox. There you go. And I was like, basically, that's what happened. So, because it's ours, it's going to be our guy. And the same thing on the other side. So, that's the way it's going to happen. These guys are going to escalate, but this time, Putin is going to keep going. He's not going to say, all right, what are you going to do? Stop that garbage, take your garbage out of Ukraine, and then we're going to take our garbage from Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, wherever we stop. And I guarantee you, these guys were Blinkenstein again. Blinkenstein again. Why? Because they have more to lose and they don't want to sacrifice their families for Ukraine or Zelensky Stein. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.